When the calendar turned to May in Fiji, there was a convergence of relief and anxiety. The monsoon season had passed. The Suva Trade and Aid Convention that would crown 12 months of Mahendra Chaudhry's People's Coalition government was about to begin. But May is also a month for trouble. The big Taukai, or nationalist marches that had preceded the May 1987 coup, were back. The protests were a culmination of a destabilisation campaign that had begun when Chaudhry came to power. Was there an opposition campaign to get rid of him pretty much from the beginning?
From day one. From day one.
Sitting in on the early meetings was a former staff member of the ousted SVT government, Chaudhry.
We're going to turn every issue that came up into a racial issue to arouse the suspicion and fear of the indigenous Fijians about loss of their land, and about to cast doubt and suspicion and fear about every initiative that the coalition government brought up.
A collection of documents from Chaudhry's own Security Council attest to the government's belief the Dirty Tricks campaign was being played out.
You could see disruption in services. We were getting power cuts. We were getting water cuts.
Gossip was fermenting along with the Yangona, or kava. Fiji's first Indian Prime Minister, the chief topic around many a grog bowl.
Wednesday before this thing happened on the Friday, I was meeting a senior guy, and he said, I hope you're not one of the guys that's plotting to overthrow this place, the government. Well, I said, I haven't seen anyone who isn't plotting to overthrow the government. It's this conversation everywhere.
People that went to church came back and talked about it. People that had attended Fijian ceremonies, relaxed around a bowl of Yangona and talked about it. And everywhere, everybody talked about it.
Consumers should have access to reliable and secure supply of electricity at affordable rates.
After the 1999 election, the former union leader had fast-tracked a reform program with typical aggression. In doing so, Chaudhry trespassed onto the biggest issue of all, land.
Well, government's got its own position. It doesn't matter.
The objective of making better use of the land without threatening Fijian ownership has vexed all governments. Chaudhry's attempted reforms gave rise to the perception the Indian was intent on stealing their precious land from under them.
It was great to be working under a leader who was so visionary, and he was always there finishing work quite late. But it was almost unfortunate that, in spite of all that, I suppose he had his flaws in being ignorant about the way he was handling Fijian issues, and how this was actually inciting unrest amongst Fijians.
Chaudhry was not the only leader to have inspired unrest. There was a strong view the former Rabuka-led SVT government had lost the election as much as Chaudhry had won.
Yeah, Rabuka's the problem, because, he brought all his cronies out of the army, put them all in ministerial positions. These people have no idea how a government is run. No idea.
On the eve of the coup, while Mr. Chaudhry was toughing it out, the Indian shopkeepers were battening down. The 42% Indo-Fijian population knew they were in for another storm.
We had actually heard talks of a coup, but it's Suva, there's a new rumor starting every day.
One doesn't have to be blind or to be smart to basically realize or feel that we were heading for danger.
We were concerned that the government really wasn't being very skillful in selling its message to its people. what the government was doing inherently was not bad, but it was failing to convey in terms which the people understood its message and what it was doing, and we could see that it was losing, therefore, general support.
I had tried to tell, and a lot of people tried to tell publicly and privately, Mr. Chaudhry, the sensitive nature of the situation, but I guess it fall on deaf ears.
The public grumbling remained in stark contrast to the government's self-belief that May 19 would be a proud day.
What this government has done in 12 months, no other government has done in 12 years.
This is the newspaper supplement that never was, listing a range of achievements and produced, as you can see, for the following day. It was never released. On the other side, among the plotters intent on capturing government, there was little to no preparation. They said they didn't need it.
I think the taking over of any or storming of any place or anything like that is already been practiced in the army.
The coup's military commander, Major Lingairi, was a member of Britain's SAS when its soldiers stormed the Iranian embassy. Lingairi returned to Fiji to head up a counter-warfare unit whose members, we are told, asked him to take charge of this hastily improvised plan. A staunch nationalist, Lingairi would bring the necessary force. Spate, who had become the public face of the coup, was recruited at the 11th hour.
George Spate was a distant relative of one of the guys, and that was how it all came about.
The story behind how the coup took place and how we met, all of the players, is quite miraculous in and of itself. It's nothing short of providential influence. And yet I'm not a religious man. I haven't been to church in 15 years. And yet, having said that, I think all of us, in our hearts, have a quiet resolve and respect for the Almighty in our own way. But
so
it'll shock you to learn that I met Major Lingairi on the morning of the coup for the very first time.
I didn't know Mr. Spade till 30, 40 minutes before the coup. And as I said, that the struggle for indigenous people is always there. When I was called up to see them, I just, when they told me the thing is set, and I just asked, who's this, who's that, and that is, then I say, okay, go ahead.
So who made the call? Who called you?
Oh, my own people called me. The people in the unit, they called me because they are the only people who can contact me.
The first objective for Lingairi, Spate and just 7 soldiers in civilian dress was the removal of the Indian PM who'd been popularly and democratically voted in. The second was to tear up the constitution that had been approved and introduced by the preceding Fijian-led government.
I had timed it to be right after the opening prayer in the morning. 2 seconds after the amen, and they sat down.
All of a sudden, I saw men walking in with guns, and I did not even recognize anybody. It was a few seconds later that I started to recognize George Spate.
Normally, you don't really see him in Zulu, the Fijian way. And so it really took us a while to recognize him.
They came right in front and started firing the gun up in the air.
The speaker, even what I remember him shouting out from the chamber.